What's up, Nubians? Welcome to techn00bians, part of the Geekish Network. This is your weekly deep dive into video games steeped in the blackest of blacks. For those of you who don't know, techn00bians is a live stream and podcast hosted by Black technology professionals where we discuss the what, when, and how you can get into this world of technology, specifically video games. I'm your host, Cherie, and with me today we have our man with 1,000 plans, Chuck.
What's up, everyone?
I like how I just said 1,000 plans. I'm usually 1,000,000 plans, but just 1,000 today.
I got
1,000 this week. 1,000 today.
It's 1,000 today. Yeah.
We've got our producer, sleuther, and deducer, Shanae.
Hey, folks.
And we got a guy with a whole bunch of like dice in the background. I don't even know how he got on this pod.
I'm still last.
Still last. We got Travis.
What's happening?
Peace. We are here every week to inspire, sustain, and nurture successful creative technologies in the pursuit of Black excellence and content development. Everyone knows when we do this, we kick things off with the news. We do a long topic. This week, we are talking about gaming conventions, y'all. GDC just finished up, but E3 has been canceled. Like the actual in-person and virtual events have been canceled. And we want to talk a little bit about this. We want to know, are gaming conventions a thing of the past? You know, are we still trying to hang on to like that past like relic? Is that what gaming conventions are? Do we still need them? So we want to talk a little bit about that for our long topic today.
I have opinions.
I hope so.
What?
I hope so. But before we get into our talk on the convention circuit, let's talk tech and gaming news with our news segment, techn00bians. All right, folks. So let's kick this off. I've got an article I just want to talk a little bit about. This was some big news from this week. So y'all may have heard of this person. His name is Elon Musk. You may have heard of him.
Oh, I've heard of that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon Musk purchased 9.2% of Twitter, becoming the single largest shareholder, and he is now appointed to the board. And this is particularly interesting because I saw so many like articles about this that were like, I love they were like the snark titles. One was like, and forgive my language here, but it said prolific shitposter now owns 9.2% of Twitter. And another one that was just called guy whose companies keep getting sued for discrimination threatens to improve Twitter. So it's kind of interesting because, Elon Musk, if anyone follows his tweets or follows, some of the controversy or whatever around him, he's very vocal on Twitter. He's also pretty, he considers himself like, I guess, a free speech advocate and thinks that Twitter is
free speech or free speech?
Free speech. Yeah, free speech. Thinks that Twitter is preventing free speech or something to that effect. His first act as being named to the board was to tweet out a poll asking if people wanted an edit button, and he purposefully misspelled yes and no as the options for do you want an edit button, and it forced Twitter to come out and say, hey, by the way, we're working on an edit button. No, we didn't just start working on it because of this poll. So it totally stepped on that messaging. But I'm just kind of curious what people think about this and like what this means for like the future of Twitter, because it's like you have the richest man in the world who thinks that his speech is being impeded.
Okay. I have never, ever, ever thought that this quote was more apt than now. Mm-hmm. But the great poet, Wheezy, once said, it ain't tricking if you got it. Look, he rolled up on Twitter and said, I do what I want. And damn it, he is doing what he wants. Now,
he got before.
I got nothing but respect for someone who can give you an industrialized flex. You know what I'm saying? It's also pretty dangerous when you think about it.
It is definitely pretty dangerous. Like, I mean, so like I said, literally the richest man in the world. Like, not even like that's not even like just hyper. Like, literally the richest man in the world.
And he thinks his speech is being restricted. I mean,
that's the thing I think you run into issues with when people who are, at the top of the pyramid think they're being oppressed.
somehow. So, I mean, the thing is, anyone who's somewhat has somewhat familiarity or is active on Twitter, knows it can be kind of a cesspool. Like it's like moderation issues and harassment and all kinds of stuff. Like it's a lot, right? But in recent years / months, things kind of were almost on the upward trend. Like certain presidents got banned from it. And then all the bots, a lot of Russian bots got kicked off Twitter about a month ago, or around the beginning of the Russo-Ukrainian war. And the general sort of consensus, at least in the circles I travel in, is that wow, this is weird. Twitter has actually become a place that has allows for a little bit more honest discourse, because there's no more bots that are just like constantly signal boosting trash. So then this happens. And it's very much a knew it couldn't last forever sort of moment. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect from Twitter in its upcoming now that it's under new management.
I mean, it's not, he's just the largest shareholder of common stock, right?
Mm-hmm.
He owns 9%. He doesn't run the company. I mean,
he doesn't run it, but he's on the board. He has a voice on the board, right?
Yeah,
that's not nothing.
But hasn't he always been on the board? I thought he was always on the board, because that group of men are always friends. They sit on each other's boards all day long.
He apparently wasn't.
Yeah, according to Vice, he said he was appointed to the Twitter board of directors this past week.
Specifically because he bought
he may have been
$72 million worth of stock.
Yeah, that might have just been making it official, mind you. I have no doubt that his voice was still prolific.
I just think rich people getting bored, like this is basically his equivalent of I just bought an island kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. I
wonder how pervasive your business has to be in order for people to actually describe it as a public service. You see what I'm saying? And I think there are certain social networks that are at that scale, right? And it's interesting, right? And Twitter, love it or hate it, is at that scale. And if it's at that scale, you got to play by different rules. And it's going to be interesting to see if other people decide that they want to pay for their free speech.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen. Like I said, Musk already got into trouble with the SEC from random stuff he would post on Twitter, like when he was like, "Should I sell, some of my Tesla stock?" And suddenly the Tesla stock
do that.
So it's kind of like, it's interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see like what this means. I said initial, like first thing right out of the gate was like, "Do you want an edit button?" And anyone who's on Twitter knows like the edit button has been like, for years has been something that people have been begging Twitter to have. And then like, that was like his first thing. And then suddenly Twitter was like, "We're going to have an edit button," but it's not because of a poll. We were actually working on it before.
Can I like opine just for a second?
Sure.
Right about this, but it's this race to the bottom stuff that I just can't stand, right? It's like, I love Apple. Okay, but when they decide that they're going to create like folders, everyone went crazy, right? Like, oh my God, there's folders,
And then you can put folders in the folders,
right? And like directories didn't exist before that. You know what I mean? And so now it's like something so basic as the edit button. Really, Twitter, get out of here.
I know. So it's become like just like some people's just like their
white whale.
Yeah, basically it's their whale. Their whale. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe this will, with Musk being on the board of Twitter, he'll have less time to send cars into space and opine about, people working off their trips to Mars as indentured. I don't know. We'll see. Is definitely going to be interesting.
Or maybe when you get to Mars, you can only use Twitter to communicate with your family.
I'm calling it now, though. I'm calling it now. Like a decade from now, okay, I guarantee you, he will be a supervillain. I mean, I'm telling you, he's got all the makings. We are living in his zero episode, his zero issue right now. I guarantee you, he will be a super villain. I'm not exactly sure how, whether or not like he's breeding like some super monkeys or, or cats that can make pancakes. I don't know, but like there's going to be something that he does that makes him the ultimate supervillain.
I think so. I think probably.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Our dealership in the stars.
I mean, he says he's a proponent of free speech, right? What's he going to do when all of us start calling him out the way his family earned their wealth is through slavery and having Africans go through emerald mines to pull out emeralds so his family could sell them?
No, that speech is too free. Stop it. Stop.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, just the speech that I want you to say. I want you to say, not the speech that you want to say.
Well, and the thing that we have to, when we talk about free speech, this is sort of it sort of winds up being that what's the word, red herring sort of thing. That's a red herring from the Clue movie. Free speech means something. Like there's literal text, and it's specifically talking about the government repressing speech, and these private companies are, like you said, they're very large. It feels like they're on a public scale, but they're not there yet, right? And so I don't know if there's value in trying to push them to that. Like, I don't know what that looks like. Private industries becoming public industries. That's a whole nother can of wax or ball of wax. And then also, we also have to remember, like, we often talk about this stuff being, legislation and these sort of rules for these tech companies being, very America centric. But it's like, these things are all global too. So once we start, like, we decide we want to classify one of these social media companies as now a public service, like, what does that mean for the sort of global community of like how they actually are regulated and stuff too? So
we'll see.
Big things potentially on the horizon.
We'll see.
And what's the next Twitter? Where I need to move.
I will say, since we are talking about supervillains, Shanae, you have a story for us about supervillains.
There's some supervillainy, I think, sort of thing. Activision Blizzard. They've been in the news quite a bit. ActiBliz. You usually when you start off a sentence with Activision Blizzard, it's like, okay, what's that? So this one's got it sounds like a positive story, but it's got a twist to it. They actually just announced that they're going to be making almost 1,100, like over 1,100 of their temporary QA employees full-time employees, which means that they would now have access to benefits. They would have access to all the stuff that comes with being a full-time worker. They also would be allowed to be eligible for bonus programs, and it also comes with a wage bump, like an hourly wage, the minimum for them, because it goes up to $20 per hour. Which, when I think about when I was a QA tester,
right,
20 years ago,
right,
I'm like, $20 an hour. Oh, that would have been glorious. But there's a catch.
Of course.
Because there's always a catch. Like I said, there's always a light side, dark side sort of thing. And this is something that wasn't actually announced with the original, when the original announcement went out. Some folks that they found this out afterwards. The Raven employees, the Raven software QA employees, who sort of originally started a lot of this talk about unionization and stuff, they are not eligible for any of this, not eligible for the pay bump specifically, because I think they're already permanent employees. If you recall, I think it was like the end of last year, they actually had like a 2-month strike in protest of like some other QA testers being laid off suddenly. It's like right before Christmas, I think. And that really kickstarted this whole conversation about unionization. There's been a lot of back and forth. There's been a lot of conversations about union busting. And then Activision Blizzard came out and said, hey, we're going to make our QA testers permanent, but not if you're unionizing. So it's sort of like a nice fresh red apple with like a worm inside. Like, do you want to take a bite? I don't know. You might get half a worm. So thoughts, discuss.
Well, okay. As you were talking about this, like, I don't know why, like, the whole industrial revolution just sort of flashed in front of my eyes, right? And I started thinking about people who are on the line, who build things. You know what I'm saying? And that's almost QA is almost a software equivalent, right? And there's practically nothing, tech wise. There is nothing tech wise that doesn't go through some sort of QA/QC.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So that's going to become a huge thing, to the point where I can see QA more universally unionizing. And that's what people should be afraid of, right? Is because you get all these people in who know that they are like the backbone of what you do. God help you if they decide, I'm out, right? Like this whole planet would come to its knees. And that's true.
And let's also not forget, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic right now, right? And people have referred to the sort of the change in the sort of workers status as a number of the Great Resignation and the worker revolt, a bunch of different things, right? But really what it comes down to is that this is a workers market right now, and this pandemic has given people a lot of bandwidth, a lot of just space to really look at their jobs and the way in which they're being treated, and saying, you know what? I can go over there, make more money, work fewer hours, be treated more like a human. And that has nothing to do with people not wanting to work anymore. It has to do with, what the standards of living that people should be afforded anyways, right? And we've had lots of conversations, I think, about the game industry and our failings in the game industry to allow people work-life balance, or I can't even say work-life balance, just life, to allow people a lot to live in addition to making games. So, the unionization talk has come up quite a few times over the last few years. And the fact that companies are workers are moving forward with unionization, actually successfully voting to unionize, is exciting and also probably terrifying for a bunch of companies.
As it should be. I think the fact that Amazon unionized, that can change everything, because that can ripple all throughout their whole entire company. So that's going to end up being on the AWS eventually.
Absolutely. I think this is, I'd say keep your eyes out for this. I think this is, starting with QA. I think it's going to go a lot broader. I think it's going to be a really a really difficult fight. As well, because this would fundamentally, as Travis was talking about, ripple effects, right? This would fundamentally change a lot in the game industry with how we work and how games get made. And I don't mean that as a negative thing, positively, because there's been more than one even recent example, but going back even as far back as 20 years ago, everyone remembers the whole EA spouse stuff, right? We still struggle with those same sorts of work-life balance, work-life integration, just paying people a living wage and that sort of stuff. That's still a thing. Death March Crunch, still a thing. Yeah. And as people start to unionize, maybe it becomes not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of to that point, I mean, we were just talking about EA. We were there at EA during the whole EA spouse thing. I have slept at the studio multiple times when I was in QA, because there was always there was always that focus on the game is the most important thing, right? And you also always had that sense that you were always replaceable and you were always expendable, And as you mentioned, I mean, right now, the pandemic has definitely put it in focus. The power is with the workers. It is not with these companies, stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm hey, strike that iron while it's hot right now. Seriously. Because there's been, EA had its own thing where back probably 10 years ago, they had to go through and do a mass
leveling.
Basically promotion from dozens and dozens of temporary employees to being permanent. Because, effectively there was no real difference in the work that the temporary employees were doing versus what the permanent employees were doing. So they actually had to go through and do something like that as well. But, I'm all for it. Whatever, the workers here are able to get to codify work-life balance into their actual contracts and stuff like that. We really should do that.
Yeah, I mean, sustainable game development is the drum I've been beating for a while, and what we have right now is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Like, games are huge and they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I said, I don't even use AAA half the time when I'm talking about these big games. We call them quad A because we're talking about games that are $200 million budgets, literally thousands of people globally that are required to get these games out the door. And hundreds of those thousands of people are from QA explicitly too.
Yes.
They're massive endeavors.
Yeah.
And we're watching folks like burn the candle at both ends to make games. And we love making games. Don't get me wrong. I love making games, but like I said, games we shouldn't have to sacrifice as much of our lives as we do in order to make games. And I think that people are realizing that and saying, hey, you know what? Actually, there's a better way to do this. I've invoked Hades, the Supergiant team of Hades, quite a few times because they had their set of rules for making Hades that was like game of the year, no emails after 5 on Fridays, like they didn't do Death Munch Crunch, and they hit game of the year through like several different venues gave them game of the year for that. So there is a way to do it. It's really hard. It requires us to not fall on those like crutches that we've fallen on for like the last 30 years of game development. And it sounds like it might require some unionization too.
Yeah, because the Supergiant team did something that a lot of teams can't afford. We launched the game when it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
We launch it when it's ready versus, I had to hit this quarter for these investors of this company so that the executives of this company can make $1 million payouts on it. Yeah,
it's challenging for Supergiant. Like you said, they're able to do that. They're able to release games when it's ready. Mm-hmm. They have so many games where it's like it's a yearly release schedule.
and by the way, just to
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. And just to bolster that too, I know because when the conversation about Supergiant doing this, a lot of folks came push back and said, Hades is not really a AAA game, like they could afford to do that because it was a smaller scope game. Yeah, well, you know what? Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart also says they made their game without crunch. You can't argue that was not a AAA game. That one actually won Game of the Year for did one Game of the Year? I think it won Game of the Year for through a number of venues, or at least was nominated for Game of the Year through a number of venues and stuff. That's some quality products and stuff as well.
Yes, it's funny how they equate quality with the amount that you almost murder your employees with. Like, if we're not killing them, then it's not a great game. That's not true.
Honestly, that was one of the things. Sorry, just last point I'll mention here. Like, that was one of the things for for EA that we would talk about back when we were trying to ship a game. They had to put 100 hours on like that final build.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about it was about quantity. So many times, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just want to mention that. Sorry, Travis, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to bring it back, I guess, to the core of this, initial question, which is, like QA has more power than people realize, and it speaks directly to how much we rely on software, period, for practically everything that we do. Programs we watch, things that go in our body that regulate things, just software is everywhere. And these people who and these people who have to test this software, if they decide to link up, that is about the I can't think of a more powerful organization in the modern age, actually. So that's why, to me, when you describe this whole news story, it kind of shook me, because I was thinking, man, that is definitely the production line of our new our new way of life, really, right?
It's the last mile.
It touches everything. So take care of your QA people, for real.
Oh yeah. And also, so many of us came from QA as well. Like I started off in QA. Travis, I think you started off in QA. My sister started off in QA. It's like, treat your QA folks right.
I'm just going to make this last comment, then we can move on, okay? Because I think it's important, okay? Because Sinead always makes the you old jokes, okay? Look, I wasn't in QA. We didn't have QA, so producers had to.
Sorry, the letters Q and A hadn't been created yet.
They getting those letters. The alphabet was invented.
So QA department was a new thing.
Someone was scratching QA bugs into a.
Dang, Travis was in gaming before there was QA.
He was numbering the bugs with an abacus, and things like that. On to our next story. Chuck, you've got a story for us.
Yes. my story. Drum roll, please. Unreal Engine 5 is alive. If y'all didn't see the announcement. So why E3 doesn't exist? Unreal is one of the reasons why. There's like, why would we go to E3 when we just pop online and tell everybody, hey,
yeah,
we're here. We're here. We're doing the thing. And guess what? You can download it now. It still technically has beta on it for some. No, I'm in the beta program, I guess. But they're like, we're here, Unreal Engine 5. Y'all saw the Matrix. Y'all saw the movie The Matrix 4. Y'all didn't love it, but we have an online version
Watch
for
your
you.
mouth.
I like
What?
it.
I couldn't stand it. It was horrible. We could fight over it.
I'm with you. Chuck. I'm with you, Chuck.
I won't fight for it, but I didn't hate it. So
if I turn this webcam off, run.
Hey, you should run for liking it. So nearly 2 years after the first announcement, Epic Games has realized the next gen gaming console needs to come out. They had a State of Unreal event. That's what they called it, the State of Unreal. But the most significant changes come from a handful of technologies designed for more photorealistic visuals. These include lumens, a fully dynamic global illumination solution for more true-to-life lighting, nanites, which Epic says gives you the ability to create games and experience with massive amounts of geometric detail. They hinted on that about a year or two ago. And they said, hey, CD Projekt Red, you know that game you dropped that was trash? Nobody knew how to play it because it was always broken. Well, we're going to help you with The Witcher. So CD Projekt Red has abandoned their own engine to put The Witcher on Unreal, make The Witcher Unreal. But they're not the only ones to do that. Crystal Dynamics came in and said, hey, we're going to use Unreal for Tomb Raider, the next Lara Croft game. Wow. We're switching to Unreal as well. But that's not all.
That's not all.
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
There's
for
more.
How many payments? For how many payments though?
$19.99.
Yeah, right.
The second Unreal 5.
So they had the Matrix Awakens. They had that Unreal, the open world game they built that showed off how powerful the engine was. They said, we're going to give you all the assets today. Y'all can have all these assets.
Oh, nice.
And we have this thing called Lyra, which is a sample multiplayer shooter. We're going to give you all that too. You can have that as well. So you can build your own games and have your own built-in tutorials. And let y'all know, we did help make The Mandalorian. So we're going to have these workshops for free for virtual production. And we're going to have it for video game design. And we're going to teach you how to combine both of them because that's the world we live in now. And then on top of that, they're like, hey, y'all ever want to walk the sets of Sesame Street? We have 360 views of all the Sesame Street sets. Y'all can look into.
But we're not check. Oh, we're off the list. We're still checking things.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're not done yet. We're gonna wait a day or two. We're gonna wait a couple more days. Guess what? We've partnered with Lego to build a metaverse for children. Yeah, those Lego games y'all love so much. And we have Fortnite that has you build a lot of things and break a lot of things. We're just going to work with them and create a whole new metaverse with them. We're not going to tell you much, but we're going to tell you it's a full-on metaverse. That includes the toys as well.
I mean, that's big. That's huge. I mean, anytime you get a new
we're giving away $500 million.
Oh, okay. Just that's at the bottom. It's just like, by the way,
we'll give away $500 million.
In the list.
Yeah.
For anyone who did not get a chance to play the companion, like the demo, the Unreal 5 demo that came with like Matrix 4, regardless of what you believe of the movie, that demo was impressive. Like it's very it's gorgeous. The technology is amazing.
Yes.
And you know, being able to just play around with that for a little bit, it's one of those things where, you know, I've had my PS5 since late last year or something like that. And, you know, we've joked a few times about like PS5, it's called PS5 because you have 5 games you can play and, you know, you don't need one right now, whatever. Right. I think playing around with that Unreal 5 demo was the first time where I squinted and said, okay, this actually feels like we're sort of moved to the next generation of gaming now. Like this is the sort of thing we're waiting for from a visual standpoint. I say that as someone who is not like huge on video game visual. I'm a Nintendo fan, right? But video game visuals are not the thing that.
Say that again.
I'm a Nintendo fan. Visuals are not the number one thing on my list because we interested in games. Full stop. But like seeing that demo, I'm like, this is very impressive. And like, understanding like it's, we've talked a lot about like these sort of middleware solutions and how those empower game developers across the board. Smaller devs up to like the big AAA quad A devs. And it's huge that you have folks who are, I don't want to say abandoning, but yeah, abandoning their proprietary engines to go back to Unreal and go back to these off-the-shelf solutions, because that's not insignificant. A lot of the reasons why developers develop their own technology, have their own engines, is because they want to be able to control the direction of the technology. They want to be able to have their specific look and feel. They want to be able to control their own fate from start to finish. But it's non-trivial to make your own engine. And if Unreal 5 is providing, is fitting into that and then providing more benefits than owning their own technology, then that says some things. That signals some things to some other developers, and I think we're probably going to see a lot of folks starting to make announcements around that.
Well,
also wait for the patches.
First things first. I think that what this really was a screw you Unity party that Unreal or Epic had. I'm sure, they were like, in no Sade, but it was, those guns were pointed squarely at Unity, over their whole Weta, kerfuffle, so to speak. Look, I think what needs to happen, what is happening, is exactly what needs to happen to start making games at a level of fidelity that we, didn't see before. Is you have to democratize game development. You have to seed whole portions of your product over to other companies, because why not, right? I mean, we need to think of, really the metaverse as reality. And, in order to simulate that, you shouldn't just have to go to one source anymore. It would be sort of like, if you had to build anything, you'd have to make your own plastic. You'd have to fabricate your own chips. No, you go to different companies to do that. And so now that's what's going on. Like, you want to make trees, you go to a different company. If you want buildings, you go to a different company. If you want physics, you go to a different company. And then the art of game making becomes actually an art of game making, and not this technological feat that you really have to fight against every single time to make something that is state of the art and awesome. And so I think what Unreal is doing is awesome, because it's saying, look, we will serve as your base platform for you to make magic. Now go do your thing. And so Lyra, in my opinion, that's just the first giant step. Like, wait till you see Lyra 6 years from now. It's going to be
the MetaHuman project, the MetaHuman creator, and they give that to you for free and say, hey, you can use those in your virtual production or your video games.
Boom.
Yeah.
You don't have to rig anything, you don't have to skin anything, you don't have to weigh anything. You just shape it up the way you want and hit print, and it comes out into your game fully animatable. And we have basic animations on it and natural reactions.
That is why gaming.
Mm-hmm.
That's why gaming in its purest form, as far as I'm concerned, is the holodeck. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is tell the computer what you're trying to do, and it fills in all the gaps reasonably. And then you say, go play. Right. And we'll get there. And it's just the language that we have to build on to actually talk to computers a little better.
It makes game design go to what game design is. Game design.
Yes.
And not about the art and how pretty the art is, or how well the animations does it move at 60 frames a second. All that, how lush and rich are the environments, how many bosses I fight. It's not even about that. It's just good game design.
Totally agree. I'm just making a comment here that Travis, now I think we heard it here. Travis agrees that Star Trek is better than Star Wars.
I did hear that. That's what I heard.
That's what
So
on that point, I think we'll just quickly move ahead to talk on our long topic. So, as I teased at the beginning of the show, we just finished GDC like a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this news just now about E3, both the virtual and the in-person conference being canceled. And I just want to talk a little bit about this because, like, obviously COVID has played a big part in excuse me, the way game conferences have been realized over the last couple of years, right? A lot of companies a lot of the conferences went to digital versions, and we're kind of slowly getting back into like this in-person kind of convention again, or hybrid versions and such. And I just want to get people's thoughts. I mean, we've seen this with basically with like all facets of our lives over here in America, where we had to put a stop to things, or we had to change the way we were doing things, and now we're getting to that point where we're trying to go back to like the way we used to do things. People always talk about returning to normal, as opposed to like building like a new normal. And I'm kind of curious, is there a return to normal with regards to game conferences, with regards to like the way we used to do things for game dev? Is there are game conferences, first of all, I guess, are game conferences irrelevant now?
No. But they will have to change. Mm-hmm. And it's really based on what conferences were made for in the very beginning, right? I mean, when you take a look at E3, like E3, there was no E3 before, like it was CES, and it was CES that happened in Vegas during the winter, and it usually happened in Chicago in the winter. And those were the two big shows. And if you're video games, you kind of got this tent and you got to go chill outside where the weather was awful. And, and soon games got to the point where they said, no, we're going to do our own thing. And that's when E3 came along. But all these conferences, usually, because a lot of this preceded like the prevalence of the internet, they were there so that you can have all of your buyers in the same area, and you can pitch your games to them so that they can make their orders about how much they would actually buy. And so it became, that sort of show. I can't think of a more irrelevant reason to have a game show now, than for that purpose, to entertain buyers. And rather than me hog the mic, Shanae, I believe you can take it from here, right? So now you have all your buyers that are largely irrelevant to a large degree. What do we need E3 for?
I mean, listen, when E3 got canceled in 2020, I think that every game developer both was shocked and also breathed a sigh of relief because what y'all folks, what we know is E3 as it was always just sort of like a bomb that was dropped into the middle of your development schedule. It was always like, oh crap, we were trying to like hit these deadlines, and now we got a demo we got to make for E3 and for Gamescom, and those are probably need to do two separate demos because they've got two separate audiences, and then you show off different things. And it wound up being like there were large portions of your game development cycle where you were basically developing 3 games simultaneously, and it was incredibly painful. And it was as we've all probably experienced, those big shows like that can make or break your game like before it even comes out, right? If you have a bad showing at E3, before your game, and your game by the time you're showing your game at E3, it's not coming out for another 2 years. But if you have a bad showing, that can color public perception for the rest of your development cycle. Mm-hmm. So the stakes were huge. And it was very painful. It was very difficult to manage all of that. And when E3 got canceled, that kind of went away. And suddenly, game developers and publishers, we had control of our promotional schedules again, and of what the ways in which we got the messaging out. Like in a lot of ways, when Nintendo like pulled out of E3 and doing like the big press conferences back in 2017 or something like that, they went and did their Nintendo Directs. Now everybody was basically doing the equivalent of Nintendo Directs, and they realized, oh, wow, the production cost for this is significantly smaller. The way that we can get the message out, very, very different. We control the vertical, we control the horizontal, and we don't have to fabricate a literally $1 million booth and figure out crowd control and do all the things that working at those conventions did that were sort of slightly orthogonal to game development. And like, will I miss E3? There's things I miss about E3. But you know, when we talk about like going back to a new normal, like going back to the old normal, we ain't going back to the old normal. So much has changed. That's from the way in which we make games to the way that people communicate to the way that we promote our games. Like it has changed, and I think to some degree irreparably in the last 2 years. And I don't think that anyone's looking to really go back, except for folks who are sort of, you know, nostalgia wizards. I'd much rather just like, I think there's things that we can pull from that we used to do before, but I think that the ways in which game conventions and communication and that kind of stuff have evolved, I think will ultimately be for the better, not only from a game development standpoint, but from a way in which we connect with consumers and fans and really get messaging and stuff like that out there.
We're cutting out the middle person, really, is what's happening, right?
Yeah,
I mean, before there used to be like, you know, you had a relationship with your electronics boutique or your Babbage's or whatever, you know.
Oh, Babbage's, bringing it back.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yes. If you remember it, I remember
software, etc.
Whatever, software, etc. You know what I'm saying? Like you had those, you had those relationships, and now you don't need that. I mean, you know, like, you know, these people who are now in, any place that really does retail software, so I won't single out anyone in particular, like they don't need that person to suggest what's going to be good. They see it right, you know, on their phones. They see it on their PCs. That relationship, you know, that the retailer used to enjoy with companies no longer really exists in a substantial way. And so that's why our conventions need to change to reflect that, right? Need to change that, because what your retailer is going to want to see is so far removed from what your end user wants to see, that when it's time for you to talk about your new products, talk to those players. And retailers.
So have conventions changed to reflect that? 'Cause, I mean, it sounds like, I posed a question. I'm like, are game conventions irrelevant? And everyone was like, no. But then we just talked about, here's all the ways they're irrelevant.
I actually wrote down some game conventions are irrelevant. Some parts of game conventions are irrelevant.
Let me tell you why they're relevant. The fans, like E3, try to live in both worlds. We're going to make it for professionals and have a day for fans. And that just doesn't work. It's like having one partner, and then you have another partner, and they share the same house with you, and they hate each other's guts.
Some people do that.
They hate each other's guts. But this is where you have PAX, for example. That is a completely fan-focused thing. When they invited developers in to show off their games. Like, we're here for the fans first, and we're going to show off the games. Like, even Evo, we're here for the fighting game community. And since you fighting developers want to come in, y'all can come in and set up a booth. And those are worthwhile. The thing I hate about, I'm going to miss about developer game conventions and conferences is that it's a time for us to breathe and actually socialize with each other. There'd be times where somebody be gone for 2 years. You haven't talked to them in 2 years. Y'all worked at one studio. They live down the street from you. You haven't talked to them in 2 years. And all of a sudden you're at GDC. You're like, hey, what's going on? How's the job? Good.
I mean, that was the thing. Like all the conventions, when we went into convention season, like we would see each other and
it felt good.
At your CES, at your GDC, at your E3, at your Gamescom. And then the convention season ends, and then we see you all again the next year or the year after that, because we were talking here.
Yep. You get to show off what you've been working on. Like, I've been working on this thing right here.
No, it was can I talk about GDC for a second here, by the way? Because of all the gaming conventions that were out there, GDC always used to be my favorite. Like it was like, we've got E3, which was very like E3 and Gamescom are very press focused, and then they're sort of shifting to be fan focused a little bit too, but primarily they're press focused, or they have been in the past. You mentioned your PAXs and stuff like that are more fan focused. GDC was developer focused. Like GDC is where, first of all, it's expensive as heck. So, it's an investment to even get out there wherever you are in the world. I live 20 miles south of San Francisco, and it's still expensive as heck to get into San Francisco to go to GDC. But I liked GDC because it wasn't just about game, like the prestige and like the sort of Times Square-ishness of games. It was about the science of games. It was about the technical expertise. Like, how do you build games? How do we get better at it? What are we doing wrong? What are the new technologies that are coming out there?
Yeah.
And it was a time for us to all network with each other. It was networking, it was education and learning, and some geeking out and having fun with meeting new people and having fun with the old friends and all that kind of stuff. And obviously GDC in person got canceled the last 2 years, and they actually did it this year. And I can tell you, up until about the week before, me and quite a few of my friends were absolutely convinced that they were gonna cancel it. They're like, are we really doing this thing? Is this really happening? I did go to GDC this year, and I'm put a big asterisk on that because GDC, the primary show starts on Wednesday through Friday. They have summits on the Mondays and Tuesdays and all other various things. I was there for Tuesday and Wednesday, so I kind of went. I was like semi there. I wasn't there for the bulk of the show, but it was really different this year, as you can imagine. There being a global pandemic that is still raging, even though we like to pretend that it's not. And there were definitely pockets of GDC that felt like people were like trying to go back to the way it was before, like, and just sort of like being like, oh, we're in San Francisco. Oh yeah, I haven't seen that person in 3 years, and I think people got a little bit, really comfortable. And, there was such a pressure to just sort of like forget all of the big scary things like Omicron, BA2, Deltacron, whatever crons that are out there. Unicron. And just sort of and just indulge in the fact that it's like, man, like it's starting to feel like it was before. It was a much smaller show. It was a much more intimate show, and that it was like GDC in previous years was like 40,000 people. I think this year it was less than half of that. It was like 17,000 or something like that. If you go the in-person and virtual. But yeah, it was also just had this weird sort of thing hanging over it of, we're back in San Francisco and we're doing the things we did before, and we got all this, but everyone's got masks. We had to show proof of vaccination. You had a little thing you had to wear around your wrist when you were walking into the buildings. It was a weird GDC. And of course, then if anyone follows the stuff online, a lot of people got COVID. I double wore my mask the entire time. I was like KNF94, N95, you're never going to see this part of my face while I'm out in public. So I was fortunate. And also I was fortunate, just lucky enough to not come back with anything. I was just there for a couple of hours, like I said. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting because I think this GDC, like saw people refer to it as a super spreader event, and it kind of was. So how is that going to impact the way, like there's some other in-person conventions that are like looming. I think PAX is either going on this weekend or coming up very soon, PAX East. DICE was a few weeks back. There's other in-person things that are coming up. And the online prevailing opinion is like a lot of confusion, there were some good moments of GDC, but all the fallout afterwards has been pretty brutal. So
yeah,
I don't know what that means.
Let me try to lighten the room or the mood here a little bit. All this pandemic.
My masks are very fashionable.
So I think that the more the Metaverse becomes the thing, the more, once again, we're going to start experiencing more things virtually. If you bring it back to what we were talking about with Unreal, for example, it's not going to be too long before, I mean, it already is. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but, Unreal has a substantial amount of the share of the, games that are either in development or been developed. That are modern at this point. What happens when your E3 pass is Unreal client, right? And you actually enter the convention through Unreal on a cloud. And then because practically all these games are being built in Unreal, like what's wrong with actually pushing, a game environment to you as they do an announcement, right? Like we can do that. We can, that's not even like far away technology. That's like a couple years ago technology. Like we can stream that kind of stuff so that you could walk around in these new environments. If you were like, hey, here's Elden Ring or here's Street Fighter or something else, like forget like showing you some video, we can put you actually there, right? Like in engine. Why wouldn't you do that, right? At a gaming convention, especially, right? And so that's what I think new technology is going to be able to give you is experiences like that you've never seen before. Like when you go to a concert, you could go to a virtual concert, and if you're taking a look at that Unity example where that woman model was extremely well done, right? Having a virtual concert that way, like, and you can point your camera or your wherever you want to. I mean, man, things are going to look dope. Like not going to, they already do. So let's just use this technology to like, I don't know, stay away from each other for a little while.
It won't feel like a true online virtual like metaverse convention unless like your headset sprays some con crud in your face. and there's like a variety of places where like it stops you from getting food, and you like it makes you wait to have to go to the bathrooms or something. Just they gotta figure out how to recreate all the horrible parts again.
I mean, because seriously, I mean, think about it. Like every time someone at a gaming convention, at least for me, every time like someone says, oh, and it's like this new thing, like whatever it is, like this new game that everybody's been waiting for, I want to be in that. I want to go to there, and like now we can actually no screwing around. We can put you there when we announce it, and it's not the whole game, but here's a trailer that you're actually in.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that stuff's inevitable too. I mean, going back to the Star Trek right here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's started.
Is it a new discovery for you?
I see what you did there, sir.
See what I did?
Insert Picard joke here. No, I mean, I think that's like the direction that we're definitely going to go.
Make it so.
Oh, you nerds. So many nerds right now. But I appreciate it. Thank you, nerds. Yes.
Oh, Lord.
But I think that, what we've seen like from these sort of virtual convention offerings lately is really anemic, actually. Like it is either trying to poorly recreate a real world experience, which is like, hey, you're not like, I'm not gonna get the con cred, nor do I want to get it, but they're trying to recreate that. Or it is, like you said, just a bunch of videos. Like even GDC had an online component to it this year that purportedly was a little bit more expansive than previous years, but even then it was something like $600 for a handful of videos that you could watch, a handful of like panels you could attend, and it was nothing like the actual in-person GDC of like running into people and thousands of thousands of folks and hundreds of different sessions and dozens of tracks. Like it was very, very different. So it was always very, very scaled down. The online components always seem to be, we have these like hybrid conventions. Online always seems to be the secondary, secondary consideration. Afterthought. Yeah, it's an afterthought. And in the last 2 years, you would have thought we would have gone more virtual first when it comes to these conventions.
I'll mention one quick thing there. Yeah, I mean, I think, I kind of relate it to like, for instance, what we've done with like schooling and stuff like that in this country, where we always looked at like the virtual component as being temporary. We never looked at it as how can we like take this experience and like actually build out something new that works and is effective in perpetuity. It's always like, let's try to recreate what we had before, but it's only temporary, so it doesn't really have to be that great.
We'll make it good enough so that people like don't revolt, but we're gonna be throwing this away in about a year, right?
Yeah, I think I mean, I think it's a shame that we did not as a country and as industries and stuff like that haven't really started to look at like how do we actually just build a new experience that is it's intended to be an online experience, right? It's not intended to be like this, like a consolation prize, is not intended to be just an afterthought or like a bonus, whatever. It's like, this is actually what we want it to be, I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, that place yet. What Travis, what you were talking about, I love that idea. If we can kind of get to start doing load testing now, start working building an experience that is like, this is intended to be this kind of experience, as opposed to, we got to cancel last minute. Well, here, we're going to throw this stuff at you last minute. Please give us some money.
Yeah. we need to recoup the cost of paying for the venue.
Exactly. Well, folks, as always, a wonderful conversation. I think we're going to keep talking about this for a while. Sadly, COVID ain't going anywhere for a little bit. But I think we still have lots of opportunities. I think, as we start going back to these in-person conventions, stuff like that. I think it'll be interesting to see, who really takes that next step in really building out a purposeful, interactive, online kind of convention that's not just, a Nintendo Direct. As much as I love them, they're just videos.
They are just videos.
Yeah, and is actually something that's like more than just a Zoom call as well. So
nice.
It'll be really interesting to see what we're able to do in the future, and and what opportunities are there. I want to thank everybody for the conversation. I know we're going to keep talking about this. And we'll see what's the next convention that's coming up.
I think PAX East is right around the corner. And then I don't know when anything else. I don't know when anything is anymore.
PAX
West,
West.
I'm sorry.
is coming up in
Is it
August.
PAX West? Oh, I'm sorry.
In August. PAX West is August.
Yeah.
And Comic-Con.
Yeah, Comic-Con's back.
Of course. That's right. Comic-Con's back during the summer.
Yeah, it's not on Thanksgiving weekend.
And then Game Devs of Color, which actually switched to being all online and actually is a very fun engaging online experience. They're coming back again, I think, in September.
Right, sweet. Yeah, it'll be great. Well, folks, I want to give a shout out to Digital Click for all the creative they provide for us for each and every show. If you want to learn more about techn00bians, hit up our website, techn00bians.com. That's techn00bians.com. Please follow us on our socials. And if you like our vibe, and we know that you do, and you want to learn more about game development and everything geek, please like and subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. And share us, share our videos, share our podcast. All of season 1 and season 2 episodes are streaming now. You can also follow the Geekish Network on all major platforms. And come see what else geek we're talking about this upcoming week on the Geekish Network. On Monday, we've got Pod Squadron at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, followed by Geek Beast at 7:30 Pacific. That's it for now, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and see you all next week.